All right. Um. Uh huh. We just. Oh god, my hair looked so nice a minute ago. Am I vibing? Oh god. Trying to look in the camera while also. What is this? I'm going to the mirror. I'm going to the mirror. All right. um. So what's going on, everybody? Truthful Minister here. Glad you clicked on another video. Hope you're vibing today. Hope you're having a great time. The world's crazy, but God is consistent. We're just gonna dive in today. So today I wanted to talk about just kind of my life story. So I'm 22, but I didn't become a Christian until I was 16. I wasn't raised in the church or anything like that. So I just kind of want to talk about that journey, what it looked like, and then I'll talk a little bit about like what it was like coming into Christ and like what happened after that. Like how has my journey changed? What were my struggles in becoming a Christian and things like that? And this is really just to encourage people if you're new to the church, or maybe if you're not, just like, I don't know. It's always good to hear someone's perspective on how God's changed them and things like that. I just think there's a lot of power to that. And I think it's just, I don't know. I've just always been called to share my story. So here's me doing it again. And so hopefully I get this all done in one take. Had a lot of technical difficulties so far. I think I got it all set up. If I don't, then you know what? It's just not God's plan. But I think it's all going to be good. Probably going to do this one take. I've shared my story like a jillion times, but this will be the first time I've done it on the internet, which means I can take however long I want. I'm about to give y'all every detail. This is a MTV exclusive right here. So, starting off, all right? And just so you know, I feel like I'm going to be tempted to look at myself often. I'm on my like monitor right there, even though the camera's here. I'm probably going to keep going back and forth. I hope that's not too distracting. Anyway, going to power through. So, as a wee lad, I'm born into a home where we considered ourselves Christians. I mean, I'm born in the Bible Belt, so that's just the thing to do. If you ask someone if they believe in God here, they're just like, yeah, sure, of course. Did I know what Jesus did for me, though? No. Did I know a single Bible verse, really? Not really. I learned Psalms 23 just because it was like the cool verse at the time. But other than that, didn't really know much. And I lived that way for 16 years, man. And I always tell people that when you're growing up and you don't have Christ, it's like there's this hole in your life where he's supposed to be, and you just don't know it yet. And it's like a cross-shaped hole, and you're just trying to put anything in that hole you can because you don't know what's actually supposed to go there. You're trying to, and like for some people, it's like alcohol or drugs, and some people, it's like lust, and some people just need to be in a relationship. Some people need wealth. Some people, I don't know, they'll fill it with whatever they can. And for me, growing up for 16 years, all I knew was go to school, go home and sleep. And that was about it. I played sports, but it was like go home, sleep, wake up, school, sometimes sports, sleep, school. So I was like, all right, what is the most important thing in life? The most important thing in life is very clearly what other people think about you. Popularity, status, that's what matters. And so I grow up and I'm just thinking like, man, I need to fit in. I need to be somebody that everyone laughs at my jokes. I need to be Mr. Cool. I need to be the most popular person. And it's just obviously not a good lifestyle to live, but I grow up and I'm thinking, all right, get to 7th grade. And I feel like at this time I'm at like the bottom of the totem pole, even though, social status, it's a human construct. What really is popular, but that's a whole other thing, but looking back. But at the time, I'm in school and I'm consumed by like, I want to feel like I'm the cool kid, And I didn't feel like I was at the top of that at all. And so 7th grade, I was like, all right, big brain. In order to be one of the cool kids, I'm going to act like the cool kids. And so I thought that I would start being like them. And what that meant was I was going to start making fun of other people and just like making crude jokes and like always trying to act like I was better than everybody else. And I did that and it succeeded. But, I mean, obviously that's not something good that you want to succeed at. And so in 7th grade, like I had this weird swap of personalities. And then it wasn't until one of my friends from before was like, man, you've really changed. Like the old Johnny would have never said that. Like I feel like you just make fun of us now. Like we're always the butt end of your jokes, and it's just mean. Like I don't know. Whenever you started hanging out with these guys, like you just changed, and I felt bad. I was always raised with good morals, even though I wasn't really raised like in a Christian household. And so I felt bad, and I was like, dang, what am I finna do though? Because like I want to be popular, but I can't make fun of people. Double-edged sword here. Go into 8th grade, and it just, everything worked out. 8th grade was like the pinnacle of my life at the time, dude, because I get to 8th grade, we're the top dogs of the school. 8th graders are the oldest kids in the school, and I'm in this perfect little niche where I'm able to hang out with all of my less popular friends while also hanging out with my popular friends. And I hung out with both of them, and so I truly was like the most popular kid, I would say, by just purely the definition of the word. Like, everyone knew my name, people laughed at my jokes. I was like, that's what I always wanted. I was like, this is it. I finally made it. It took a while, but this is what life's all about. I got here, life's good. And then at the end of 8th grade, like toward the end of 8th grade, these two guys who I considered to be like the most popular, like the top dogs of the school, these two guys, they look at me, and one day, and we're just chilling in class, and they're like, hey, just to let you know, when we get to high school, we can't talk to you anymore. You're too weird. And I was like, what's up? What's the vibe? And they're like, yeah, just letting you know, full disclosure. Like, pure serious. And I was just like, all right, good joke, you know? Sure enough, go to high school. Back at the bottom of the totem pole again. Freshman in high school, you know? Back at the bottom. I'm dirt. I'm nothing, right? Get to high school, walk into my first class, and it's just dead silent. So you know, like, anybody, if anybody says anything, you can hear them. Dead silent. We're all these nervous little freshmen, and I see those two guys. They're in the back of the room, and I'm like, oh, sweet. I got a class with these two guys. Lit. I know them from middle school. We're gonna have like our own little squad. Lit. I'm like, yo, what's up, guys? I said it like across the room, and again, silent. I know they be hearing me. Didn't even move. Didn't even look my way, and I was just like, oh, sick. So like they're really, because I remembered them saying that, and so I just knew like, all right, this is the vibe. You're gonna go through high school, back at the bottom again. Like, I was on top, now I'm at the bottom, and so that put me in this weird spot where for the next 2 years of my life, it was so weird trying to be popular while also being in like this turtle shell mode where I was afraid to like open up to anybody. I was afraid to call anybody my friend again or like get too close, because what if they did that to me? Like, that hurt, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I don't want to get hurt again, but I want to be popular. Like, I'm gonna have to put myself out there. And so it was just this weird struggle, literally, of like trying to climb a ladder. Like, some days I would feel as if I was doing good and I made a couple jokes and people liked me, and other days I'd feel like I was going back down the ladder. And being on this struggle of like, am I good enough, for so long obviously wasn't healthy. Get to junior year, this is where everything changes. Junior year, this is when I was 16. This is the year, dog. This is the good part of the story. Hooray. So, junior year of high school, after 2 years of this struggle, right? Get to junior year of high school, and so it's coming to a peak. I'm very like sad all the time. I've never been a person to show that. I've always been chipper. I've always been up and at 'em. So for 2 years before junior year, I was what I would call a social chameleon. I wouldn't say a social butterfly, because that's like, I don't know, that's too froofy. But I was a social chameleon. Like, whatever social group I needed to adapt to at the time in order to fit in, I did. Like, whatever group I had class with, whatever group I felt like I could get into a group the most. I just didn't want to be alone, right? That's at the core. I just didn't want to be alone. I wanted to be happy, and I didn't want to be alone. And so whatever group I needed to adapt to at the time, based on who I had class with or who I had lunch with, that was the group that I was like, yo, these are my dogs. Like, I'm gonna make this group my group. I am one with you guys. And then if my schedule changed and I got into a different class, I'd just go to that group. I'd go to a new group, and I would adapt everywhere, because again, I didn't want to open up to anyone and commit to anything, but I wanted to be popular, and it was so hard. But junior year, going into this year, and I have this chemistry class, all right? Shout out my chemistry teachers in high school. They were solid. But I have this class where we sit at a table. There's 3 other people at this table. There's this one girl. Then there's this guy who sits next to me who, funnily enough, was one of those guys that back in middle school I thought was like Mr. Popular. And he was one of the guys who was like, I'm never going to talk to you again. Sick. Sits next to me. And then the girl in front of me was this girl who I had known since like kindergarten. And we were like kind of friends. We had just gone to school together forever. Our parents volunteered together at like our elementary school. So we knew of each other, but we just never really like hung out or talked. And then one day, we have this lab in chemistry, right? And we make a pact at our table. I had always gotten the short end of the stick whenever we did group projects, but we make a pact at our table that we're like, all right, so we have lunch during this class, but what we're going to do is we're going to make a pact to where when it comes time for lunch, either we all leave together or nobody leaves, because we have to clean up. We're required to clean up our lab. And when I say I'm doing a lab, in case you don't know, I mean like chemicals into beakers, titrations, ice, gloves, goggles, whatever. We're doing like a full-blown lab. And so we're like, all right, we have to clean up before we go to lunch. So we're making a pact. We're all going to clean up together and then go to lunch together. Nobody gets left behind. All right, make a pact. Hands in, break. Time for lunch comes. All the other groups clean up really quickly and leave. My group leaves me behind. The one thing we agreed not to do in my group leaves me behind, right? And so I'm bummed. And I'm thinking, like, dog, this is crazy. Of course, I get left behind again. Like, that's just who I am at this point. I'm the guy that gets left behind. Everybody likes to talk to me. Everybody likes to make jokes with me and stuff. But it's like, at the end of the day, I'm the guy that's going to get left out. And it put me in this weird spot because that girl who I mentioned that I had known since like kindergarten was like the nicest girl in school. And she got good grades. She played a sport. She got along with everybody. Like everybody seemed to like her. And it was just like she kind of had like this golden life in a way, it looked like. And so I was like, dog, if this girl is even leaving me behind, like if she's even just like, all right, yeah, let's just go to lunch. Let's forget about Johnny. Like if that's her even, I must really be like rock. I'm nothing, dog. And so that was like what I would consider my rock bottom, like that absolute moment where I was alone in the chemistry room cleaning up this lab. The chemistry teacher was even like done cleaning, so she was like off to lunch. I'm literally alone in this room cleaning, and I was just like, this is my life. Always left behind. This is it. This is me. And so, thankfully, I've always said that like one of my genuine gifts from the Lord is that I can't be angry or sad or mad for too long. Like just I've felt in my life moments where I've felt like I should be more sad since I've become a Christian, or moments in my life where I should be more stressed out about something and I'm just not. And I'm like, dang, this has to be God. I'm known for being such a joyous person. I always have been, but yeah. But anyway, I have this rock bottom moment, and thankfully, I would say that Jesus just like threw a trampoline beneath me, and he was like, all right, if Johnny's gonna go to rock bottom, I'm not letting him stay there for long. So I hit the rock bottom and then just like bounced right back up because I go to walk out of the room. I go to walk out of the room, and just like a movie, like you can't make this up. That girl who I mentioned is running back to me away from her two friends, like the other two people at the table. And she's literally like carrying her stuff and like dropping stuff. She's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry. Did you get everything? I forgot. Like, I'll help you clean up if there's more. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I forgot we made that pack. I'm so sorry. Like, are you okay? And like, in one moment, it's just so weird how you can go from just being like so far down to like elated, like confusingly elated. And I was like, wow, like someone remembered me. Like I have value. You left your friends. Like I'm not popular. I'm not, and you're coming back for me. Like who? Do you think? Is there a? I don't know. And it was so weird, but it was so good, obviously. And so we walked to lunch together. I go to lunch with my other friends, and she goes off with her friends and stuff. But I was just in there thinking, like, man, like that meant so much to me, low key. I was like, I can't like not say something about just how much that meant to me, as opposed to just being like, oh, thanks, yeah, it's no big deal. Like I was totally just gonna clean up, no big deal, whatever. When on the inside, I was just like, I was like, I have to say something, and so I did, and I was just like, hey, I just want you to know, like, I've been kind of down lately, and so that was like really cool of you to do. Like, you didn't have to come back for me like that, and I don't know. I know a lot of people. I said something like, I don't know, doing good deeds or something like that. Like, you never know what's gonna happen, and so I was like, I just want you to know, like, that really did make my day. Like, thank you so much. Like, blah blah. And she responded and was super nice, and so this started between her and I, like this great friendship where I was just able to slowly start opening up to someone about how down I had been and like the things that I wanted and stuff like that. Which I had a good friend group. Don't get me wrong. I'm not searching for like some kind of pity. I wasn't like truly a loner. Like I said, I just kind of adapted wherever I needed to go. And I had a good core group of friends that like I played basketball with all the time. But it was just they were just my basketball friends, man. And like yes, we were homies and like we had all kinds of good times together, spring break together and all that later after I became a Christian. But up until this point, we just never got like deep. And that's what I wanted. I knew, like I saw in the movies how people had these like super deep close friends that were like their ride or dies and they told each other everything and all that. And I was like, I don't really have that. And so slowly with this girl, I start opening up to her and it's great. And I'm literally the poster child for inviting someone to church, as awkward as it can be, because that's literally what happened. Like we started this friendship and it's great. We started hanging out more, and one day, like after her basketball game or something, she's driving me home because she was like a little bit older than me. She got to drive first, So she's driving me everywhere. And one day I literally said something like, "How are you so happy all the time? Like, what is this? Like, how do you have it all together?" And she was like, "Well, I go to church. Like there's this guy Jesus, and so here, I just try to be like him, blah blah. And here's what our pastor says." And she starts giving me this little spiel. And to me, again, I'm a very lukewarm, like fake Christian, where I'm just kind of like, yeah, I believe in God, sure. So everything she's saying to me is basically new, but it's so cool to hear about. And eventually one day, like I said, we're just talking about that kind of stuff, and she says, "Well, do you want to come to church with me this Sunday?" And I'm like, churches are boring, not really my vibe, but I guess I'll go. Sure. And so I go, and like I haven't looked back since. I mean, I went to that church for probably 2.5 years ish. It was just so good, and I met these guys in my small group who I still talk to today. There were 3 other guys in my small group that I still keep up with, like literally to this day, and that was again 2015, 6 years ago. So it was so great. But I'll start to talk about this more in detail here. Going to church, and it's great. I'm fitting in. Like everybody's so accepting and so nice. And I'm a questions guy. I'm a logical person. Like I have questions about everything. I'm not a let's just sin. Like I kind of am a full sender sometimes, but in terms of like beliefs or in terms of like who I trust, I'm like, let's look at the facts. Like what have you done? Like actions speak louder than words. Like even if my gut is like, I trust this person, I'm like, but what have you done? And so I'm asking questions about everything. I'm asking my pastor, like, or my youth pastor at the time, random questions about words in the Bible I don't understand. Like, I'm texting him, like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Blah, blah. But I started reading the Bible because I asked my friend, and I was like, what should I do, like, to be, I don't know, like, if I had this vision of Christ, right? I had this vision of being a Christian where I was going to wake up after going to church, my window was going to open and the birds were going to land on my shoulder and sing. The sun was going to smile at me with sunglasses. I was going to ride my unicorn to school the next day. They were going to declare me the official president of the United States because I inherited it somehow and I'm just that awesome. And that's not what the vibe was. So I'm going to church. And I'm like, what else should I do? And she says, all right, you should start reading the Bible. Like if you've got all these questions, especially start reading the Bible. So I do. And she says, start reading in Matthew. Start reading in Matthew. And this is the first time I've ever read scripture in my life. And so I go to read Matthew and it's like, I don't read, first of all. That's a side note. I don't like reading. I just don't. Reading was my least favorite class. I liked writing. I liked being creative. But when they're like, all right, read Little Women, I was like, that ain't it. So I hate reading, but she says to read the Bible. I'm like, all right, why not? Try anything, right? Go to read the Bible, go to read Matthew, and it's like I couldn't stop. Like, it just intrigued me so much. I can't stop and I can't stop, and it's just so good. It's just because I'm so intrigued by this dude Jesus and like how important he actually is. Because everybody has heard like, oh, Jesus died on the cross, sick. Oh man, that's another crucifix, cool. Oh, that's some boring worship music, cool. But like, I'm starting to actually read about it, and it's tight. I get to Matthew 5, and side note, God, I hope it's like still recording and everything's good. No technical difficulties today, please. Anyway, get to Matthew 5, and here's the vibe, all right? Maybe real quick, actually, I'm going to pause and then I'll restart just to make sure everything's good. Wow. So it seems like everything's recording well. Sick. Hope that keeps up. Shout out Jesus. Anyway, get to Matthew 5. Sorry for the cliffhanger. Get to Matthew 5, and everything that I've ever known about life, essentially, is flipped upside down. And because, I'll just read it. I have to read it for you. I go to read this as someone who's never read the scripture before, and this is what I read. Jesus speaking here, he says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And so I go to read this, and I literally, in my room alone, wept. I'm just weeping, and I kind of understood why, but I kind of didn't. It was just, I literally felt every emotion at the same time. Because what I would have expected to read at this point in my life, if you remember me saying what I was trying to fill that hole with, if you would ask me what Jesus would have said here, I would have said, blessed are the kids who fit in. Blessed are the kids who have boyfriends and girlfriends. Blessed are the people who have a good job. Blessed are the people whose parents are still together. Blessed are the people who have a lot of money. Blessed are the people who wear cool clothes. Blessed are the people who get good grades. Blessed are the people who play sports. Like all these things. Blessed are the people who can say whatever they want. Blessed are the people who are liked by so many people. Like that's what I thought was important. And here Jesus is saying, "Blessed are the meek." Blessed are the meek, and I'm what? Like this and who what? And so this, like I said, flips everything I thought was important and takes it and just flips it upside down. Nothing that I think was important is important to Jesus at all, clearly. And so I reached this weird spot, and this is why I say I felt like every emotion. It was like it was like I felt Jesus saying in this moment, "This is where I've wanted you to be this whole time. Like this is it. This is the wave. This is where I've wanted you, Johnny. Like I know you've been feeling the vibe lately. I've been, this girl brought you to church. This is it. This is the moneymaker right here." I felt Jesus kind of tugging me like that. And so it was this weird emotion where I was hype. I was like hype because I had figured this out. I figured out what life was really all about in a way, and it was so good. But I was so sad because I was like, wow, how did I miss this? How did I go 16 years that were not great compared to the joy that I'm already feeling from reading a few verses? It's like now I see how sad that really was, and it's like how did I deal with that? And then it was just like it's like anger in a way because I'm confused and sad and happy all at the same time, like I said. And this is the first experience I've had with Jesus, and so, oh man, I can't even describe what it was like. But hopefully that was a decent enough job, just alone in my room crying. And so sure enough, the first day I went to church was January 10th, 2015, at that specific church at least. And then I was baptized on May 17th, 2015. Dove right in, like I said. Like, yeah, I was a questions person, but it took 5 months. And I was like, dude, this guy Jesus, this Matthew 5 stuff, like, that's where I'm at. That's what I'm about. And so I dove right in. And when I say it like that, I mean, I was participating in everything I could. I was going to church camps. I was volunteering at the elementary school ministry. It was so good. I dove in and I didn't look back. Now we'll get into what did life look like after that? That's when I'm 16. So what does life look like for the next 6 years? Becoming a Christian, right? Becoming a Christian off the rip. Number one struggle I had, and if you're a newbie Christian, maybe this is something you'll experience too, is why did God do this? Like, if you're so great, and like I do believe that, and you're great, I've been baptized, I'm excited to live my life for God now, it's like, then why did I go 16 years without it? And the reason I brought this up was because, or the reason it was on my mind is because now I'm hanging out with all these great people, like I said. I have a great friend group that I still hang out with to this day from that church. But when I first started hanging out with them, they had all these great memories, and so I was always kind of left out of these references where they were like, "Oh, remember that time at that one church camp?" Or like, "Oh, that was so cool. Like, remember that one person in our church?" And everything just sounded so happy. And then I was thinking about my life, and I was just kind of like, "Yeah, totally." Like, I don't have that many moments that I can be like, "Dude, remember that moment? It was so cool." It was like I had a few, but I mean, just nothing compares to the joy of Jesus, obviously. And so it was confusing of like, why didn't I get this earlier? Like, come on, God, like you're so cool. Like, you're telling me I couldn't have been like these people that like were just born and knew you. Like, ah, wouldn't that be awesome? And I struggled with this for a while, and I wouldn't say I was ever angry. It was just genuine confusion. Like this didn't make sense to me. And so I'm like that for a while, and then the second year I did this Christian like kids camp. So I literally for probably about a year I'm like this, and then the second time I do this Christian kids camp, there's a part where like the counselors like tell their stories for the kids, kind of like I'm doing now, but obviously like a 5 minute version of this in kid terms. But we tell our stories, and it was like literally in the middle of telling my story where I kind of thought about, wow, like I didn't get to do what these kids are doing right here when I was a kid, right? I'm telling these kids about Jesus at this elementary school camp, and I was like, I didn't get this. And it kind of clicked for me in a way where I was like, man, probably the reason I had to go through that was because now I know what these kids are dealing with. Like, now I understand what it's like to grow up, like I said, with that hole. I know what that's like. I know what people are thinking about Christianity already who aren't really involved. I know the preconceptions they have. I know what priorities are. I know what their focus is. I can say like, hey, dude, I was like you. Like, I understand what it's like to be a little kid and to just be so concerned with what other people think about you at school. I know what it's like to have these struggles. I know what it's like to not understand who Jesus is. I know that when I start to tell you this Bible story, you're going to have 50 questions because that's where I was. And so that started to click for me, like right there in that moment. Like, maybe this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, God did this for a reason. Everybody has a unique story that leads them where they're supposed to go. God gives everyone unique gifts for different reasons. Maybe this is my part. Like, maybe I was made for a time such as this, right? And so that's when I kind of realized it. And at that same time, I think that might have been the summer before my freshman year of college. I can't remember. Timeline gets all weird, but either way, there was another point around that same time. I think it was that same camp. It was like a night we were hanging out after that, where I was with one of my good friends. Her name's Kate, and she said one day like, Johnny, what do you want to do when you go to college? And I was like, well, I'm probably gonna be like a biology major or something. I don't know. I mean, I liked biology in school, so why not? Like, biology was probably my favorite class. I love science. So I was like, I'll probably just do something with science, I guess, because I like it. And she was like, I've never heard you talk about science once. Like, you never talk about biology and stuff. And I was like, I mean, how often am I supposed to just weed in, like, Punnett squares into a conversation? Like, I can't really talk about biology. And she was like, yeah, but all you ever talk about is, like, church camp. And, like, how hype you are to go serve at another church camp. Or how hype you are about teaching kids at the elementary school ministry on Sundays. Like, that's, like, all you talk about. So why don't you do something with that? And I was like, maybe I should do something with that, dog. Like, what? How did this not click for me before? And those two like moments combined, like that kind of whole like month-ish of my life is when I was starting to figure out like maybe this is why God put me where I am. Maybe this is why everything happened to me. And I started connecting everything where, and you remember how I said I was a social chameleon or whatever, like I adapted to everybody? Man, there's a verse in First Corinthians, it's 9 like 19 through like 23, where he says, I've become all things to all people. Like, to the weak I became weak, and to the servants I became a servant, and all these different things, or whatever he says. And I was like, that's me. Like, I'm able to minister to people in a way that other people genuinely can't. I've been everywhere. I've done everything. I'm a nerd. I play sports, but I play D&D. I've played all these different games. I'm an athlete, but I've explored. I love traveling the world, but I love to read the Bible. I love to all these different things. I'm musical in some ways. Like, I'm friends with a bunch of musicians. I'm friends with not musicians. I'm friends with people who listen to Screamo. I'm friends with people who don't listen to Screamo. And I just felt like everything in my life combined, like literally peaking at that moment. It was like God has put all of this together in my life so that I could minister better for him. And that helped me too when I started reading like Paul's writings. When Paul is this dude who also wasn't really a believer in Christ, and then he has this one like mind-boggling moment. He's like, dude, I'm doing everything wrong. Here's how I can go ball out and talk to people. Like, I don't know. That's kind of when I learned like, okay, this is why God did this in my life. And so continuing forward, um, yeah, I just dove in. I was a biology major for like a semester, and I was like, this is hard. I'd rather do religion. Sick. So I went and did like an education major because I thought I wanted to teach kids, which I still do. But I was like, all right, I'm gonna go teach kids, so I'll get an education major to help me figure out how to teach kids. Right? Was an education major for a day. Swap majors again immediately because education majors, shout out. But I was like, nah. So I went and majored in religion with a minor in Christian ministries, and that's just been my goal ever since. Like, I don't even know what else to talk about post that, but other things I can talk about, I guess, are just, man, experience is everything. I've been blessed. Like, since I became a Christian, like I said, life wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, but God knows the desires of your heart. And the thing I wanted most before I became a Christian, like I said, was I didn't want to be alone. I wanted to be happy. And sure enough, I come to Christ, and what do you know? I have my best friends that, I mean, I talk to this day. I have my best friends that I know, like, I've told them stuff that I'll never tell anybody else. Like, that kind of friend that I wanted. Like, the friends from the movies that you see everybody, they're like, ride or die. I was like, I want that, and I have that now. God brought that to me. And I just wanted, like, I wanted to not be alone, and I wanted to be happy. And I get to college, like I said, and our campus ministries director one day does, like, this series on the fruits of the Spirit. And so he preaches on the first fruit of the Spirit, and he was like, I want to have, like, guest stars to preach all the other fruits of the Spirit. Like, every fruit of the Spirit should have a different speaker. And I was, like, literally chosen by our student body as a student. I've never preached in my life to give a sermon on joy. Because they were like, dude, this guy is happy. And I was like, I mean, sick. Like, that's kind of what I want to do. So I did, and I balled out, and people loved it, apparently. But that was my first ever sermon, was on joy. And again, I wanted to not be alone and I wanted to be happy. And God was just like, sick, boom, there you go. Desires of your heart. And so that's not to say that every moment of my life has been perfect. That's not to say that I haven't lost friends over the years. Like, people come in and out of your life for a reason. God does things for a reason. And sometimes it stinks, sometimes it doesn't, but that's just how it goes. Like, life hasn't been peachy and breezy. But like I said too, there are these moments in my life where I've known I should be more stressed. I've known I should be more angry or more sad, and I haven't been. Because when you put your priorities on this book right here, as opposed to like the world, like as opposed to fitting in money and relationships and things like that I was obsessed with, when you put your priorities in Jesus and you look at what he says in Matthew 5 of poor in spirit, those who mourn, those who are meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, when you start thinking about those things instead, when your priorities have changed, your whole life changes because you're like, okay, at least I have this. Like, you've learned to be content. Like, Jesus, I know you've got this. I trust God more with my life than I did before. And because of that, it's like, okay, this bad thing happened. Well, I know that he's come through it for me before. Like, after 6 years, man, I've been through it, dog. Let me tell you, I've been through it. And so at this point, it's like, God's gotten me here, though. God's gotten me here. So anything that could happen after this, anything that happens after this, it's literally like I said, you feel like you should be more sad, but you're like, I mean, hey, God's gotten me here, so I trust him. I trust him. And that's why I would say life gets so much better the longer you are a Christian. Like, I know at the beginning it can be confusing if you're a new Christian. Like I said, I was confused. I had questions. Man, stick through, and God will always be there. God is eternal, man. Persevere, patience, persevere. Um, some of the hardest moments in my life, man, I had to rely on the other people for sure. Don't do it alone. I had great wisdom in my life, like shed to me from other people who I would go to, whether it be in tears or in anger, and just be like, I can't do this. Like, this is too hard. Um, I'm not good enough for something. And just anytime I had those moments, and there were some moments again. Um, Man, God always just powered through, and like, yeah, it stunk, but I always made it through. And so I'll end with this. Um, I would say my life verse. I end like all my letters I write with this and anything like that. Just life verse. People use the term life verse a lot. Like, I have a lot of scripture that I could quote that I'm like, dude, I live by this verse. But in terms of my story, how I would end it is John 13:7, man. John 13. If you don't know, Jesus is washing his disciples' feet. That's where that happens. John 13. And the disciples are like, dude, you're like the Messiah, right? Like, you're our guy. Like, you're the plug, man. Why are you taking off your clothes to wash our feet? Like, we're dirty servants. We're, you know what I mean? Like, washing feet is like the most servant thing you could do at the time, and Jesus is doing it for them, and they're like, why are you doing this? And in John 13:7, it says, Jesus replied, for you do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand. And I have been so blessed in my life to, yes, I've had so many moments where I'm like, God, like, what is this? Like, God, I don't like this. I'm confused. I don't know. And I'm impatient too. I'm not a patient person. That's why I'm sitting here preaching like, hey, take it from me, be more patient. And it's so hard to work on that. But over the years, I've managed to slowly build up some patience. But I want to know things now. I'm like, God, why are you doing this? Fix it now. Like, this stinks. And man, I've been so blessed where, yes, there are those moments, but always, at some point or another, I'm able to look back and say, oh, God, that's why you did that. Like I said, for 16 years, I wasn't a Christian. And then afterwards, my first struggle was, well, why did I go 16 years without Christ? How does that make sense? And then eventually, like I said, I was like, oh, that's why. And so, yeah, that's my story, I guess. Now I'm just vibing. My goal is to just spread this joy that I have, this confidence in Jesus to the world, you know? Um, yeah. I don't know what else to say. John 13:7. I know if you're watching this and you're in a hard time right now, man, dude, tell somebody how hard it is. Vibe out to them, open up to them, don't keep it in. And then after they encourage you and you feel like you've gotten it off your chest, do that same thing again now that you know how to do it with God. And just be like, all right, God, this sucks and I hate it. I'm thinking about like the last time that I was in like a pickle. We'll just put it at that. But the last time I was like really down in the dumps, or last time I had something really tough happen to me that lasted a while, there was so much of me just being like, I don't get why this is happening. I don't get why this is happening. And eventually I just broke down and was like, God, this stinks. Like, take it away. Like, please, just like, I'm so confused. And wow, by golly, if it didn't just change my life for the better. It's so funny how that works out, but, and it's so hard to look at. Again, I won't make like too light of it if you're in that struggle, because yes, it stinks. Like the fact that it's going to be good at the end doesn't mean that right now it's going to get any better. I'll just be, I think it has to be blunt like that. Like, again, being a Christian isn't all sunshine and rainbows, but it's just so much better. It's like just so much trust and so much faith. And every time you do trust God, and every time it like ends up working out, your trust gets so much stronger. Just patience, persevere, patience, persevere. That's all I could say. And that's just my story, man. God does everything for a reason, as hard as it is to see. Be patient, persevere. Love God, love people. Yeah, ask questions. Asking questions builds faith. If you haven't watched my video about reading the Bible, read the Bible more. That also changes your life. Most of my, I'm literally just piecing this together now. Most of my like revelations in life and in my faith have come in times where I've read the scripture the most. 100%. Easy. I can think of two of the biggest struggles in my life. I ended up like getting better or like making it through after reading scripture more. Like anytime I've been struggling, I've been like, all right, I'm gonna start reading scripture more than I ever have. And I've just dove in and it gets better. Like, weird how that works out, right? It's almost like God's just like a real person or something crazy. Yeah. So hopefully, someone can relate to this. Hopefully you're vibing out and having a great day. Like I said, if you're going through anything, hope it gets better. Feel free to leave some like prayer requests in the comments for sure. Like, I'm not even capping. Like, leave a prayer request in the comments, dog. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful. Like, if we can get not even just myself, but like some other homies in there praying for you, it's kind of mind blowing what prayer will do too. I'll have to do a prayer video one day, but no cap. Leave your prayer requests in the comments or something if you have anything. I hope this video touched somebody. I hope this helps somebody with something they're struggling with, Lord. I'm like praying out loud in a way, but yeah. Love you guys. Thank you for watching all of this if you did. Thank you for God not giving me technical difficulties. And we're out. So thank you so much.